Welcome to your geometry class. Today we're going to be continuing with our topics on geometry. Today we're going to be looking at angles and transversals. Okay, so we are continuing with our topic on angles. So make sure you grab those concepts we learned first on angles. Then we're going to be introducing what are transversals. Okay, so our objectives here is to identify perpendicular lines, parallel lines, and transversals. Okay, so these are the three types of lines we are going to learn today. Then we are going to understand what happens when a transversal meets a parallel line. Okay, so this transversal, when it meets a parallel line, what happened? Okay, then the next thing is we're going to be applying these relationships, what happened here, to solve problems. Okay, so there is an interesting example we are going to look at. Okay, so make sure you won't miss that. This was that. Now let's get into it. Make sure you subscribe. First, let's look at perpendicular and parallel lines. Okay, so what is a perpendicular line? Okay, so a perpendicular line, let's say this is our original line. A perpendicular line, assume that this is straight. Okay, a perpendicular line is a line that joins this line at a 90 degrees angle here. Okay, so this is what we call a perpendicular line. Okay, so we can say these lines, let's say the first line is M. Okay, so this is the other way we can name lines using small letters like this and L here. Okay, so what you can say that is this line L is perpendicular to M. Okay, so this is the meaning of perpendicular line. Okay, so if you just see two lines that meet at a 90 degrees angle here, they are perpendicular. Okay, so this means that here is 90 and this side again is 90 and this side again is 90 and this side again is 90. Okay, so this is the meaning of perpendicular line. Okay, so remember that a perpendicular line are two lines that meet at a 90 degrees angle. Okay, now let's talk about parallel lines. Okay, so parallel lines are the lines such that let's say parallel, there's a equal distance between them. Okay, let's say this is the first line N and this is the second line O. Okay, in this case they are represented by a arrow like this. Okay, they are parallel. This distance from here to here D and this distance, okay, should be equal. Okay, all until infinity. Okay, so these were called parallel lines. Okay, so we can say that parallel lines, they never meet. Okay, so these are two important lines to grab. Here we have perpendicular and parallel lines. Parallel lines, they never meet. They have an equal distance between them here. That they are represented with arrows like this. If you see two lines with these arrows, this means that they are parallel. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at transversals. Okay. So when we say a line is a transversal. Okay. Let's say we have two lines here. They are going in this direction and this direction. Let's say this line is called P and this line is Q. Okay, make sure that when you represent lines, you represent them with small letters. Okay, so they are coming from a point here. Okay, so a line transversal is a line that crosses two or more points. Okay, so this line, it crosses this line and again it crosses this line. It is called a transversal. Okay, so you can represent it with a small tree. Okay, so this is what you say a transversal is. Okay, so when you have two parallel lines like this, these lines are parallel, they are going this direction. Okay, even they can go this direction. Let's assume they are parallel, and if a line crosses them like this, okay, we can call it a transversal. Okay, so a transversal is a line that cuts two or more lines. Okay, this is what we call a transversal. Okay, so now let's look at what happens when this transversal meets parallel lines like this. Okay, so there are certain angles we have to grab. Okay, let's start by drawing two parallel lines. Okay, so here we have two parallel lines here. Okay, so make sure they are parallel here. Okay, so now let's draw a transversal. Okay, so let's say line this line is M and this line is N. Okay, then let's draw a transversal, the line which is joining, which is cutting these two. Okay, let's say it's T. Okay, so let's say they're joining at a point A. Okay, this point is A and this point is B. Okay, so now let's look at the relationship we have here. Okay, so we're going to be talking about this angle. Okay, so let's name them. Okay, so let's say this is angle 1 and this is angle 2 and this is angle 3 and this is angle 4, this is angle 5, this is angle 6 and this is angle 7 and this is angle 8. Okay, so we're going to be dealing with these angles, with these 8 angles. Okay, so the laws we are going to be using are the first law. Please make sure you grab this and please write it down. Okay, the first law is Z angles are equal. That's the first law. Okay, so the angles which form a Z are equal. Okay, so this you just visualize your Z and you know that this angle and this angle should be equal. Okay, so in this case we have angle 4. Okay, so represent it like this: angle 4, it forms a Z with angle 5. Okay, so this means that angle 4 and angle 5 are equal. Okay, then the other thing is this: we have another Z here. Okay, it's not that pretty, but it's a Z. Okay, so this means that angle 3 and is equals to angle 6. Okay, so this is the meaning of Z angles. Okay, when they form a Z like this, from here to here and here, they form a Z. This means that they are equal. And here they form a Z here. This means that they are equal. Okay, so that's the first law. Okay, then the other two, the second law is that F angles are equal. Okay, so we have our F here. F angles are equal. Okay, so when the angles form an F, okay, so this is an angle and this is an angle. They form an F like this, they are equal. Okay, so in this case, you will see that an F is formed here on 3 and 7. Okay, 3 and 7. Okay, so this is a, you can know that angle 3 is equals to angle 7. Okay, so this is an F which is formed. Okay, so now find another F and comment in the section which other F and tell me which angles are equal when these F angles are equal. Then the other third is that the opposite angles. Okay, so we have already got opposite angles of this transversal. Okay, when we do the opposite angles, we mean for a point here. Okay, but in this case, we're going to mean these are two parallel lines, but this 8 here, this angle 8 is opposite to this one, angle 1. Okay, so this means that these two angles are equal. Okay, so now we can say that angle 8 is equals to angle 1. Okay, so this is the meaning of opposite here. These are two opposite of this line, this side at the end and this side at the end. They are equal. Okay, so angle 8 is equals to angle 1. Similarly, angle 2 and angle 7 are equal. Okay, so this is what we call opposite angles are equal. Then the other thing is the fourth one is these angles which form a C like this. Okay, we can see that we have a something like this. Okay, so let's mimic it as a C. Okay, so here we can see that we have an angle here and an angle here. Okay, so these two angles, we can say that they are supplementary. Okay, so when I said that, when the angles are supplementary, they add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so this is the meaning of supplementary. Okay, so these are the laws we should have to look at and combine them with the laws we know on a point. Okay, what we did in the last video. Okay, so this is it. We combine these laws and that we can solve transversals and parallel lines. Okay, now let's look at an example where we're going to deal with this. Let's take a look at this example. There are two parallel lines, L and M. Okay, so these are the lines we say that they are parallel, and there is this transversal PQ. Okay, let's name it T. Okay, it's a transversal line. It is cutting all these two. Okay, so we're going to be finding these angles X and Y. Okay, so we're going to be using the laws. Okay, so I think we're going just to use one law here. Okay, so you can see that here, this angle 60 and this angle X, they form an F, an upside down F like this. Okay, this angle and this angle. Please take a look. Q is here and P is here. Know that they form an upside down F. Okay, so we said that F angles are equal. Okay, so I remember I said that are equal. Okay. Okay, so this means that this angle, okay, it should be equal to this one. Okay, so this means that X is equals to 60 degrees. Okay, as easy as that. We're just applying the rules. F angles are equal, and we found out our X. Okay, now I remember that I said that on a point, our point P, when there is a straight line cutting here, and there is a line here, okay, this angle, or the linear angles, I call them linear angles, 60 and Y, they are linear angles. I told you that they should add up to 180. Okay, so this means that this angle y should make sure that if you add it with this one, it becomes 180. Okay, so this means that we're going to use the law of linear angles. Okay, I did that on the last video, so make sure you go and check that. Okay, so in this case, you're going to say y plus 60 should be equals to 180 because they are linear angles. Okay, so in this case, you can say that y is equals to 180 minus 60. Okay, so we are going to say y is equals to 120 degrees. Okay, so this is how we calculate these angles. We apply those laws. Okay, in this case we applied F angle. Next time we're going to apply Z angle and other things. Okay, so make sure you are there, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss it. Take care.